Hola, ¿cómo están? Last time we talked all about Mexico and Mexico City and how the flag of Mexico tells the story about how Mexico City got started. Remember how they found the eagle eating a snake sitting on a cactus? But the cactus was on a rock and the rock was in the middle of a giant lake. And they filled in that lake, and that lake today is the capital city of Mexico, Mexico City, or El Distrito Federal, el DF, the DF. Muy bien. Also, yesterday we talked about el cuerpo, so we talked about different parts of our body. I hope that you got a chance to listen to some of the songs about el cuerpo. If you haven't yet, you should go back and listen to those because those are a great review for our vocabulary. So we're talking all about me cuido. I take care of myself. So we wanted to talk about our parts of the body so that we can talk about how to take care of them. But now we want to talk about different ways that we can care for ourselves. So one thing that's important in having a healthy body is los alimentos. Los alimentos, the food that we eat. So on this page, we have a pretty famous rhyme in Spanish, and it goes like this. Bate, bate, chocolate, tu nariz de cacahuate. Uno, dos, tres, yo. Uno, dos, tres, go. Uno, dos, tres, la. Uno, dos, tres, te. Chocolate, chocolate. So it says, bate means stir. Stir, stir the chocolate. Your nose is a peanut. I don't know why, it just rhymes. 1, 2, 3, Joe. 1, 2, 3, go. 1, 2, 3, la. 1, 2, 3, te. And we spelled chocolate, chocolate. Chocolate was actually discovered in Mexico. They were the first people to make it. But probably when they made chocolate, it didn't quite taste the way that it does today because they probably didn't put very much sugar in it, if they put any at all. So it probably was more like dark chocolate. If you've ever had that before, it's a little bit more bitter tasting. People in Mexico also were the first to make hot chocolate. Remember the guy Hernan Cortez who came over from Spain that had the white skin and the blue eyes and they thought he was a god? They gave him hot chocolate because the people that were living in Mexico thought that that was the drink of the gods. And since they thought he was a god, they gave him hot chocolate. But it probably wasn't the good, creamy, kind of milky, sweet hot chocolate that we're used to. It was probably tasted a little bit more like coffee. It was a little bit bitter, probably. Might have even had spices in it, so it might have even been a little bit spicy. We don't really know. But chocolate is something that comes from Mexico. So on my videos page, you can find a song of this bate bate chocolate to help you practice that really famous rhyme in Spanish. So let's talk about los alimentos. Here's Kate and Becky singing the song Bate bate chocolate. So la comida mexicana, Mexican food, la comida mexicana. Kate says, me gusta el arroz. Do you remember what those words mean? I like. I like rice. Arroz is rice. I like rice. Abuela, I should have started with her. Abuela here is asking, ¿Qué te gusta? What do you like? ¿Qué te gusta? And Kate says, me gusta el arroz. I like rice. Mamá dice, me gustan las verduras. I like vegetables. Papa says, me gusta el tamal. A tamal is something that's made out of corn. Corn is another thing that comes from Mexico. They were the first people to eat corn. So you make a tamal by taking corn and mixing it with some sugar, maybe some chicken, maybe some spices. Sometimes they can be really, really spicy. Put lots of chili peppers in there. And you make this kind of a dough out of corn and all the other things that you mix in there. And then you take the husk from the corn, those green leaves that are on the outside of a corn cob. You take one of those green leaves and you put a little blob of dough inside, and then you wrap it up in the leaf, and then you put it in boiling water, and it cooks itself inside the leaf. And the leaf will turn from green to kind of a light brown color, and it turns almost like it's made out of paper when it's done cooking. And so then you take it out of the boiling water and you can open up this leaf that now kind of feels like paper, and you eat the tamal out of the leaf. You don't eat the leaf part. It's kind of like the wrapper on a hamburger. It's just what they use to cook. Um, and you can kind of use it to hold your tamales, so you don't need to have a plate. You don't even need to have a fork. So they make tamales in Mexico a lot for big special occasions, especially New Year's Eve. They eat a lot of tamales because it's easy to make a bunch of them at once. And it's also really easy to clean up afterwards. Nobody has to be stuck in the kitchen washing a whole bunch of dishes because you cook it inside the corn leaf. Pretty cool. So that's a tamal. So Papa says, me gusta el tamal. Becky says, me gustan las tortillas. Have you eaten tortillas before? The flat pieces of um, made out of either flour or corn. Usually in Mexico, they're usually made out of corn. It's like their flat kind of bread that you make tacos and burritos and enchiladas out of. So Becky says, me gustan las tortillas. But our friend Silvia down here says, no me gusta el tamal. She does not like a tamal. No me gusta el tamal. Maybe they're too spicy for Silvia. Muy bien. So try these words with me. Ready? Arroz, tamal. There's a picture of a tamal wrapped up in that corn leaf when it turns light brown color. Tamal. Tortillas, verduras. So we say, me gusta el arroz, me gusta el tamal. But we say, me gustan las tortillas, and me gustan las verduras. Can you guess why we say me gusta sometimes, but me gustan other times? It has to do with if we're talking about one thing or lots of things, singular or plural. So when we say me gusta el arroz, I like rice, that's something singular. Or me gusta el tamal, I like one tamal, that's singular. But if we say me gustan las tortillas, has an S on the end, it's plural. Me gustan las verduras, has an S on the end, it's plural. So it depends on if we like one thing or if we like many things. If it's one thing, we say me gusta. If it's many things, we say me gustan. Me gustan. Muy bien. Let's talk about the letter P in Spanish. P sounds almost exactly the same in Spanish and English, but in Spanish it's just the littlest bit softer than it is in English. In English we say P, and we really make a p sound, but in Spanish we don't make so much of a p sound. We just kind of touch our lips together and it's a lot softer. So we say P, 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 without that kind of a pop sound that we do in English. So when we have our vowel sounds, a, e, I, o, u, and we put it together with the letter P, we get sounds like this. Pa, pe, pi, po, pu. So we can put words with that and say pa for papas. Papas are potatoes. Pe for pera. Pera is a pear. Pi for piña. Piña is a pineapple. Po, pollo. Pollo is chicken. And pu, pudín. Pudín is pudding. Pudín de chocolate is chocolate pudding. Okay, so that's the letter P. A little bit softer than English, but not much. Now let's have you try it. Ready? Papas, pera, piña, pollo, pudín. Ready? Try just those syllables at the bottom. Pa, pe, pi, po, pu. There we go. That's the letter P. So now let's talk about a pirámide de los alimentos. What do you guess that word pirámide means? A pyramid, and alimentos are food. Have you ever heard of a food pyramid before? It's a way of teaching us what foods we should eat the most of and what foods we should make the least of. So we think of it as like a pyramid. And so the foods we eat the most of, that's like the bottom of a pyramid where it's widest. And the foods that we should eat the least of, that's like the top of a pyramid where it's the smallest. And so we have this drawing down at the bottom to kind of help us understand which foods should we eat lots of and which foods should we eat just a little bit of. So if it's a thicker line, we should eat a lot. And if it's a thinner line, we should only eat a little. And if it's somewhere in the middle, we should eat somewhere in the middle, right? So here's the different kinds of foods. First, we have granos. Granos are grains. So that is things like arroz, rice, pan, bread, tortillas, okay, would all be granos. And that's a pretty big line, right? So we should eat a lot of granos to be healthy. The next one is verduras. Verduras like broccoli and tomates and zanorias. Broccoli and tomatoes and carrots are all verduras, vegetables, and that's also a pretty big line, right? So we should eat a lot of vegetables too. Then we have frutas. Frutas like bananas, y piña, y sandía, watermelon and pineapple and bananas. Those are frutas, just a little bit skinnier than verduras. Maybe don't eat quite as much fruit as vegetables because fruit has a little bit more sugar in it. But we should also eat a good amount of fruit because it's healthy for us. The next one, though, is grasas. Grasas are fats. That would be things like chocolate, that even though they taste good, we shouldn't eat a huge amount of those. That's the skinniest little line on there. We can have a little bit, but we shouldn't make that the main part of our meal, right? Grasas. Then we have leche. Leche is dairy products, things made with milk. So it's things like leche, milk, and queso, cheese, things like that. So leche is a pretty big one too because leche can make our bones strong. So we have a pretty good amount of leche things, dairy products. And then the last one is carnes. Do you know the word carnivore? What does a carnivore eat? Meat. So the word carne means meats. Carne, like carnivore. Carne, meat. So meats are things like pollo, bistec, chicken, and steak, things like that. So carne, kind of a medium-sized one. Not nearly as big as granos and verduras, but not quite as small as grasas either. Somewhere in the middle for carnes. Perfecto. So we can say, yo como, I eat. Remember our verbs that when they end with the letter O means I. Yo como granos. I eat grains. Yo como verduras. I eat vegetables. Yo como frutas. I eat fruit. Yo como grasas. I eat fats. Yo como leche. I eat dairy products. Yo como carnes. I eat meat. Okay? If you don't eat some of those things, you would say, no como. No como carnes. I don't eat meat. If maybe you're a vegetarian, you could say, no como carnes. Or no como grasas. I don't eat fat. Or no como verduras. I don't eat vegetables. Okay? The next one says yo bebo. Yo bebo means I drink. So we could say yo bebo agua. I drink water. Yo bebo leche. I drink milk. Yo bebo refresco. I drink soda. That's what we have a picture of for grasas there, I think. It's a bottle of soda. Or no, it's aceite. It's a bottle of oil. Aceite. That's another kind of a fat. It's oils. Perfecto. So yo bebo. You don't want to drink oil though. No bebo aceite. No gracias. No thank you. Muy bien. So yo como. I eat. Yo bebo. I drink. Or we could say no como. I don't eat. Or no bebo. I don't drink. Muy bien. ¿Qué tal los restaurantes? How about restaurants? Bueno, here we are in a restaurante. And the waiter says, bienvenidos. ¿Qué quieren comer? What do you want to eat? He says, welcome. What do you want to eat? Papa says, quiero comer carne. What does Papa want to eat? Meat. I want to eat meat, says Papa. And Mama says, quiero comer pollo. I want to eat chicken. Quiero comer pollo. Perfecto. ¿Qué quieres comer? What do you want to eat? Kate says, quiero comer tacos. quiero comer tacos. I want to eat tacos. And Becky says, quiero comer tamal. She would like to eat a tamal, those things that we wrap up in the corn leaves. Quiero comer tamal. Bueno, en el restaurante, para comer uso una cuchara, un tenedor y un cuchillo. Uso un plato y una servilleta. Para beber, uso un vaso. Can you figure out some of those words? Para comer, remember what comer means? To eat. Uso, that's our verb, it ends with an O, so we know it's I. I use. To eat, I use a spoon, a fork, and a knife. Una cuchara, un tenedor, y un cuchillo. I use a, can you guess what that word plato means? A plate. That's a cognate word, looks like English. I use a plate y una servilleta and a napkin. Para beber, do you remember what beber means? To drink, uso un vaso. Can you guess what that could be? I use a glass. That's an example of something called a false cognate. That's a word that looks like an English word, but it doesn't quite mean what you think it means. So the word vaso looks an awful lot like the word vase, right? Like what you might put flowers in. And that's kind of like what a glass is, but it's not exactly the same thing, right? You don't drink out of a vase. Only flowers drink out of a vase, right? So that's a false cognate. Kind of a similar idea to a glass, but it doesn't actually mean vase like it kind of looks like in English. Un vaso is a glass. So to drink, I use a glass. Bueno, say these words with me, ready? Cuchara, tenedor, cuchillo, plato, vaso, servilleta. Bueno, ¿qué usas para comer? What do you use to eat? Uso un, what's that first one a picture of? Un plato. What's the next one? Un tenedor. And what's the last one? Un cuchillo. Uso una, what else do we use? Uso una, what's a spoon? Cuchara. Y uso una servilleta. How come for the first ones I said uso un, and for the next ones I said uso una? The first words were masculine, boy words, mostly ending in an O, right? Like cuchillo and plato. And the other two words were feminine words, girl words that end with the letter A, cuchara and servilleta. Okay, so when I use masculine words, I use un for the word a. I use a plate, a fork, a knife. I say un. But if they're feminine words, I use una for the word a. I use a spoon, I use a napkin. I say una if it's a girl word, un if it's a boy word. Muy bien. ¿Qué usas para beber? Uso un vaso. Another boy word ends with an O, right? So we say un. Uso un vaso. Excelente. ¿Cuántos hay? ¿Cuántos hay? How many are there? Say these with me. Ready? Hay 5 platos. Hay 6 servilletas. Hay 7 vasos. Hay 8 cucharas. Hay 9 tenedores. Hay 10 cuchillos. So that little word I, H-A-Y, looks like hey, but we say I in Spanish. We don't pronounce the letter H. The letter A says A, and the letter Y says E. So we say I. ¿Cuántos hay? The word hay means there is or there are. So in my question, ¿cuántos hay? Means how many are there? So when I say hay 5 platos, there are 5 plates. There are 6 napkins. There are 7 glasses. There are 8 spoons. There are 9 forks. And there are 10 knives. Muy bien. Let's see if we can figure out cuántos hay in this picture. Somebody did not do a great job setting the table in this picture. ¿Cuántos platos hay? How many plates? ¿Cuántos platos? Hay 3 platos. Hay 3 platos. ¿Cuántas cucharas hay? How many spoons? ¿Cuántas cucharas? Hay 2 cucharas. 2 cucharas. ¿Cuántas servilletas hay? Hay 3 servilletas. ¿Sí? ¿Cuántos tenedores hay? How many forks? ¿Cuántos tenedores hay? Hay 2 tenedores. ¿Cuántos cuchillos hay? How many knives? ¿Cuántos cuchillos? Hay 4 cuchillos. I think that's the only one they got right. And ¿cuántos vasos hay? Hay un vaso, just a glass on the table, and that's all. So we have 4 sillas, 4 chairs, but we only have 4 cuchillos, 4 knives. We're missing some platos, missing some cucharas, missing some servilletas, missing some tenedores, and we're missing some vasos. They did not do a good job of setting the table. Bueno, ¿qué quieren comer y beber? What do you want to eat and drink? Kate quiere comer tacos y beber agua. Kate wants to eat tacos and drink water. Kate quiere comer tacos y beber agua. Becky quiere comer tamal y beber leche. So there's our kind of corn cakes mixed in the corn husk. Tamal. Becky wants to eat tamal and drink milk. Becky quiere comer tamal y beber leche. ¿Qué quieres comer y beber? Try saying these with me. Quiero comer tacos. Quiero comer tamal. Quiero beber agua. Quiero beber leche. Excelente. And remember that if we don't want to do something, we can put the word no in front and say, no quiero comer tacos. No quiero comer tamales. No quiero beber agua. No quiero beber leche. Muy bien. Let's have a look at our workbook pages. This is página 43. 43. 43. Une. Let's see if we can connect the words to the right pictures. So a tamal, there it is, wrapped up in its little corn husk, tied with a string sometimes to keep it all together. That's a tamal. And then we have verduras. Which ones are verduras? Vegetables down at the bottom. Which ones are tortillas? Tortillas up at the top. And arroz is rice. Arroz. Bien. All right, let's keep going with that. Une. Granos are grains like arroz and pan and tortillas, things like that. Granos, grain. What's carne? Remember we talked about a carnivore? Carne is meat, like pollo and bistec. Frutas are fruits, like banana and manzana and uvas. Leche is milk or dairy products. And verduras are vegetables. Verduras gets its name from the color verde. What color is verde? Green. And most vegetables are verde. So that's why they call them verduras. Bueno, next page, 45, 45. Encierra en un círculo el dibujo correcto. We're going to circle the right picture. So a tenedor is a fork. What's a vaso? A glass. What's a cuchara? A spoon. How about a servilleta? A napkin. A cuchillo is a knife. And un plato is a plate. Muy bien. Encierra en un círculo la comida. Now this one is going to be different for everybody. You choose what you want to eat. It says quiero comer. So if you want to eat frutas, circle frutas. Quiero comer frutas. But if you want to eat arroz, rice, you can circle arroz if you want. Quiero comer arroz. Or quiero comer verduras. I want to eat vegetables. Or quiero comer pollo. I want to eat chicken. This one's going to be different for everybody because everybody likes to eat different things. So you might circle all 4 things because you might say, yeah, I want to eat all those things. I like frutas y arroz y verduras y pollo. Or you might circle none of those things. You might say, no quiero comer frutas, arroz, verduras, o pollo. Okay? It's all different for every person. At the bottom it says, no quiero comer. Is there anything on this list that you would say, I don't want to eat? Does anybody say, no quiero comer frutas? I don't want to eat fruit. Or no quiero comer pan? Don't want to eat bread. Sometimes I might say, no quiero comer verduras. Sometimes I don't want to eat vegetables. They're not my favorite. No quiero comer tacos. I don't think I would ever say I don't want to eat tacos though. Always I want to eat tacos. Siempre quiero comer tacos. So for this page, you circle the ones that you want to eat at the top and the ones that you don't want to eat at the bottom. Quiero comer. I want to eat. No quiero comer. I don't want to eat. Muy bien. Next time we'll wrap up talking about Mexico. So there's a bunch of videos that you can watch about food. There's a song about me gusta and all the different foods that this person says that they say no me gusta. It's a song about all the foods they don't like to eat. And there's only one thing that they say me gusta for. There's a couple of different other songs about food too, so you can practice all of those food words. There are lots and lots of games you can play for food words too. Since there's so many vocabulary words that have to do with food, it's a really great idea to play some of those games so that you can practice all of those words. Also, make sure you keep watching some videos about Mexico. There's some great ones about food in Mexico too, so make sure you watch those. Check out the kids eating mole, which is something really, really good that they eat in Mexico. It's very unusual, but it tastes really good. It's one of my favorite things to eat in Mexico. Muy bien. So lots for you to do to practice. Practice lots, and we'll see you next time. Hasta luego. Ciao.